Swedish defense firm Saab wants Canada to buy and build its fighter jets. The firm is pitching a partnership with Bombardier and promising to create up to 10,000 jobs along with...
For decades, Canada's defense posture has been deeply intertwined with that of the United States, not just as a neighbor, but as a strategic backbone. From the early days of continental defense to modern joint operations, the partnership has shaped how Canada protects its airspace, responds to threats, and positions itself on the global stage. Agreements like North American Aerospace Defense Command, better known as NORAD, turned the two nations into permanent security collaborators, watching the same skies and preparing for the same risks. This relationship wasn't built overnight. It was forged through shared wars, joint exercises, intelligence cooperation, and an understanding that North America's security is strongest when both countries move in lockstep. For many analysts, the assumption became almost automatic. When Canada makes a major defense decision, Washington is never far from the equation. But now, something unusual is catching attention inside defense circles. Canada is once again facing the high-stakes question of how to modernize its air force, and suddenly the conversation is no longer orbiting just one predictable option. Instead, headlines and policy discussions have repeatedly pointed toward the Saab JAS 39 Gripen, a Swedish-built fighter jet developed by Saab AB. Known for its advanced avionics, cost efficiency, and operational flexibility, the Gripen has quietly built a reputation as a serious contender in the global fighter market. At first glance, this might look like a routine procurement debate, the kind every modern military goes through when aging fleets demand replacement. But defense experts are paying closer attention, because the symbolism matters just as much as the hardware. Choosing a fighter aircraft is never just about speed, radar range, or weapons capacity. It is about trust, it is about interoperability, and often it is about geopolitical alignment. Which is why the sudden prominence of Sweden in Canada's defense conversation has raised a larger, more provocative question. Is this simply a competition between aircraft, or the early signal of a strategic recalibration? Because if Ottawa seriously leans towards Stockholm for one of its most critical military capabilities, it could suggest something deeper, a desire for diversification, greater strategic autonomy, or perhaps a quieter shift toward broader transatlantic partnerships. None of this means Canada is stepping away from the United States. That alliance remains foundational and operationally essential. But history shows that even subtle procurement decisions can foreshadow larger geopolitical trends. And that leads us to the question defense watchers are now asking. Are we witnessing a standard equipment upgrade, or the beginning of a new strategic chapter? If the previous section asked why Sweden has entered Canada's defense conversation, a more important question follows. What makes the Gripen different, and why are serious strategists paying attention? The Saab JAS 39 Gripen was never built to compete through size or spectacle. It reflects Sweden's philosophy of smart defense, not bigger, not flashier, just more efficient. Rather than pursuing technological dominance at any cost, Saab engineers designed a fighter that could remain combat-ready under pressure without exhausting national resources. The result is an aircraft known for lower operating costs, faster turnaround times, smaller maintenance teams, and streamlined logistics. What truly separates the Gripen, however, is its doctrine of distributed operations. Instead of depending on large, vulnerable air bases, it can launch from short runways, even reinforced highways, refuel, rearm, and return to the air within minutes. In an era where infrastructure is often the first target, that flexibility becomes strategic insurance. Now, consider Canada's geography: vast distances, limited northern infrastructure, extreme weather, and long response times. Adaptability stops sounding like a technical advantage and starts looking like a national requirement. Cold weather performance strengthens the case further. Designed for harsh Nordic winters, the Gripen is naturally suited to environments similar to Canada's Arctic, a region that is rapidly gaining strategic importance as melting ice opens shipping routes and military activity increases. The aircraft also leans heavily into electronic warfare and network-centric combat. Its software-driven architecture allows rapid updates, enabling capabilities to evolve through code rather than waiting years for hardware changes. In conflicts increasingly shaped by digital speed, adaptability may prove decisive.
This is why modern defense planners are asking not just what wins today, but what remains relevant decades to now. The discussion, therefore, shifts from engineering to geopolitics. Canada's priorities are evolving. Arctic defense is rising, supply chain resilience matters more, and operational flexibility is becoming essential. Among mid-sized powers, there is growing awareness that over-dependence on any single supplier carries risk, and that diversification can enhance strategic stability. None of this automatically makes the Gripen the right choice, but it explains why the aircraft is being examined with unusual seriousness, because this is no longer just about purchasing a fighter jet, it is about defining a defense posture for a less predictable world. When a nation begins emphasizing resilience, adaptability, and strategic breathing room, it often signals something larger than procurement. It signals preparation. So the real question is not simply whether the Gripen can defend Canadian skies. Does it reflect the kind of future Canada believes is coming?
If the Gripen is seen as just another aircraft, the bigger picture is easy to miss, because fighter jet decisions are rarely about the jet alone. They shape supply chains, technological ecosystems, and long-term strategic alignment. This is where Sweden becomes highly relevant. Choosing a fighter platform means choosing who to depend on during crises and decades of upgrades. Supply chain diversification. Canada's defense has long been tied to the United States, especially through NORAD. While that partnership remains essential, over-reliance on a single ecosystem can create risks, such as bottlenecks, export controls, or political delays. Partnering with Saab could introduce strategic redundancy, not as a sign of distrust, but as a modern defense principle. Resilience comes from having options. Knowledge transfer. A Swedish partnership could offer more than aircraft. Technology transfer and industrial participation could help Canada deepen domestic aerospace expertise in manufacturing, sustainment, avionics, electronic warfare, and upgrades. The true advantage, however, lies in gaining engineering capability and intellectual ownership, not just localized production.
Strategic signaling. Major defense purchases always send messages. Diversifying partners would affirm Canada's alliance with the US while signaling greater strategic flexibility. It could strengthen transatlantic ties and project preparedness to adversaries, not aggression, but deliberate readiness for uncertainty. The real question. This is no longer just about aircraft specifications, it is about national posture. Over the next 30-40 years, will Canada define its defense identity through tradition or through adaptability and strategic independence? Exploring new partnerships does not mean abandoning old ones, but procurement choices often hint at broader geopolitical shifts. This may not simply be a fighter jet decision. It could be a quiet recalibration of how Canada prepares for a more contested future.
From the US point of view, this isn't about a jet, it's about NORAD. If Canada looks like it's leaning deeper towards Sweden, Washington's first reaction won't be drama, it'll be operational concern. 1. Will Canada stay fully interoperable as NORAD modernizes for Arctic and long-range threats? 2. Will data links, mission software, upgrades, and security standards stay aligned in real time? 3. In a crisis, who controls the upgrade pace and the technical keys to the system? Because in 2026, fighters are software platforms as much as aircraft. Defense cooperation is also industrial policy. A stronger Sweden-Canada partnership could mean 1. Less US work share on parts and sustainment. 2. Pressure on existing Canada-US defense supply chains. 3. Political questions in Washington about why not keep it in the integrated North American base. Not retaliation, but leverage and bargaining. NORAD won't collapse. Intelligence sharing won't stop overnight.
But friction can increase, like tougher interoperability validation, more compliance requirements, more standardization pressure, slower approvals for deeper integration until the US is satisfied it won't create gaps. So is the alliance frayed? Not automatically. But if Canada signals more independence in the most sensitive shared mission, the US will watch one thing. Does this make North American defense faster and tighter, or add seams in the shield?
So here's the reality Canada is staring at. This isn't a simple best fighter decision. It's a strategic balancing act, old alliances versus new risks. Canada's defense calculus now has three pressures at the same time:
Keep the U.S. partnership rock solid, especially for NORAD and Arctic response. Modernize fast for a threat environment that's getting more complex, more digital, and more northern. Reduce single-point dependencies so Canada isn't stuck waiting on one supplier, one political mood, or one industrial bottleneck. That's the triangle Canada has to solve. If Canada deepens defense ties with Sweden beyond a one-time purchase, it could reshape Canada's role in two ways. One, inside North America, Canada stays a core U.S. partner, but with more leverage, because it's not locked into only one ecosystem. That can mean more resilience in sustainment, upgrades, and long-term readiness. Two, globally, Canada becomes more multi-aligned in defense industry terms, bridging North American defense realities with European innovation and competition, not replacing the U.S. bond, adding strategic depth. But that comes with a cost. More partners can also mean more complexity, integration, certification, shared standards, and the constant work of keeping every system speaking the same language. So the big question isn't whether Canada can work with Sweden. The question is whether Canada is willing to redefine its comfort zone. Is this a bold, necessary step toward a more resilient, independent defense posture? Or is it a risky departure from a path that has worked? Because the Canada-US defense architecture is not just policy, it's decades of muscle memory. And if the Arctic becomes the front line of the next era, do you want Canada to have